So, Kobi, I recently saw something you said on social media. My journey as an ally began with the admiration of my mother's resilience and dedication, followed by the eye-opening conversations with my wife about household dynamics and equality. I passionately instill these values in my children, teaching them the importance of treating women with respect and empowering my daughter to believe in endless possibilities. When I read this post, Kobi, it hit me. Like, I would have loved to have had you as a mentor when I was younger, or have seen this on social media, right? Because you're not only teaching your colleagues and everyone around you about diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI for short, but also your children, and your wife's inspiring you, and your mother. So how does that make you feel when I read that back to you?
I mean, it makes me feel great, first of all, because when you are in this space, well, especially D&I, there's a reason why you want to do it. And you're not doing it for yourself, but you also have people who inspire you. So in my case, it's my mom and obviously my wife. And if you want to pave it forward, you start close to home, which is your kids. So when you read it back to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I did say that. It gives me great joy that it has an impact on other people as well. And I'm very obviously excited for our conversation today as well. So it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. And just leading on from the quote and your inspiration then, what does DEI mean to you?
Well, DEI, what it means to me is how do I pave the way when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion? Obviously, looking at my background, I'm from Ghana, came to the Netherlands. I had an opportunity and a chance to, integrate in the Netherlands, which was not always easy. So, with that experience, I want to make sure that I can share with others, and also help others in that space so that they get a fair chance. Because I think having a fair chance also gives you an opportunity to grow, to learn, to meet other people, to go on holiday, to buy a house. There's a lot of things that comes to, this topic. And given the opportunity, from a career perspective. I mean, you and I in the TA space, having a good job is important, and you can do a lot of great things having a good job. So I just want to make sure that I pave the way in that space as well, and make sure that people get opportunities as well, or who are not maybe seen.
It's really inspiring. And how old were you when you moved to the Netherlands?
I was 11 years old.
Wow.
11 years old, 1988. It was actually 2 or 3 days after the Dutch has won the European Championship. So we landed here with a lot of orange, similar to King's Day nowadays.
Okay.
And I was like, what is going on here? But a great journey so far, and managed to pivot my career and managed to pivot, being in the Netherlands, learning the language, building great friends along the way as well. So learn a lot, but first and foremost, proud of, what I was being able to, accomplish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as an 11-year-old, how did it feel just moving all of a sudden? Because I also have a similar story. I moved when I was 10 and I had to learn a new language, make friends. I had this kind of frantic mentality, like I need to rush learning a language and making friends and understanding the culture. How did that make you feel?
I think in hindsight, it was a little bit nerve-wracking because you land in a different country where you don't speak the language. So whatever everybody's saying is foreign to you. So learning the language is first of all key. And I think as a child, I was a laid back, relaxed kid. So just learn to adapt. So adapting to a new environment was also very important. And I give kudos to my parents because they were also in a system where I remember the first week in school they forgot to pick us up because they didn't know the school ended up 12:30. So in their mind, they'll pick us up at 3, but then we ended up walking from school to home, getting stopped by police, saying, hey, what are you guys doing here? Oh, we're going home. Where's your parents? We don't know. We think home. So it was an interesting journey, but I think in hindsight, looking back, integrating your parents also, integrating in a different country.
Yeah.
And I think that has definitely molded me in terms of also looking forward. I'm a believer in, looking forward because of, my journey coming to a different country. But yeah, that's how I look back at it though.
Wow. So all good life skills, so adaptability, forward, future thinking, etc., but also good skills for a recruiter in general.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I believe so. And to be honest, obviously when I was growing up, but I was not thinking about being a recruiter.
No.
But I think for me, in a recruiter sense, the skills that you need, being resilient first and foremost, being able to connect with people, being able to
Yes.
adjust to people, and above all, also understanding the business, because a lot of people, I think, don't always realize as a recruiter, you don't do the work. So how do you understand the work to be able to identify the right talent for your respective team, organization, business?
Yeah.
And for me, it's also trying to learn, okay, how do we actually make money? When you talk about marketing, how does marketing look for us in this space? So I think it's very important for recruiters to really understand the business as well. And that will definitely help you also, identify the right talent for your organization.
So do you think with your experience as a leader that inclusivity comes from the top?
No, not specifically. I think it's very important for leaders to be great examples, but inclusivity, everybody can be inclusive, in my point of view. And for me, inclusivity is just making sure that, hey, whatever we are doing, are we thinking about other people who are part of our organization or business, and are we factoring their point of view, right? And I give this example all the time. A long time ago, and I'm not going to mention the company's name, but it is a company that is in the media, and they took away MTV Base. And there was a big population of Amsterdam who watch MTV Base. It's all around culture. And I was thinking to myself, when the decision was made to take off MTV Base, nobody in the room actually could give a point of view on why it was important to stay. So for me, inclusivity means, if we're sitting around the table, do we have all the voices that is needed to include in the potential decision-making process? So it doesn't need to be on top, but I do think that the top needs to be an example that they foster that for sure.
That's something I've seen before in companies as well, where they're nailing the diversity. So there's a lot of different nationalities, etc., working for the company. There's the inclusivity part missing. So people don't know or haven't learned how to work with each other or appreciate or understand other cultures, for example. So you've got experience with this. So if an organization, someone from there is listening, or a recruiter is listening who wants to improve this in their companies and has noticed it as well, what kind of stories or advice do you have?
Well, I think people and companies don't always stand still. And I'll give a shout out to one of my early career companies, and this is Nike. So I think Nike does a great job in teaching a lot of members within the organization all about different nationalities, background, ethnicity. Why? Because if I understand where you're coming from, then it makes it easy for me to also communicate. So early in my career, I got a chance to, be part of such a training where that was already highlighted. So as a result of that, it made me much more in tune into different cultures. What does it mean to be from Australia?
Did they give specific examples?
Trainings. Yes, there's a lot of trainings about culture, the different dynamics. Because obviously Nike is a big international companies where everybody around the globe is working for. So I think, and in all honesty, I've seen it maybe once or twice in my career, in my 23 years career. So I don't think companies really, I don't want to say take it seriously, but they don't really put the effort in educating their team and organization on the element around having a diverse population. Because if you do that, then automatically we will, factor in, you are from this country. This is how they work. And I think companies should do that more.
Yeah, they're so worried about looking diverse from the outside, but there's that element missing within where people can't really work together, or they're just mashed into a team and expected to thrive, right?
And I think, that's where also good leaders come into place. Because as a leader, you need to think about, okay, if I have a team, what are the different dynamics that I have in my team? How can I foster inclusivity? How can I foster, voice being heard? I give this example all the time. It doesn't matter for me if you are an intern or if you're a senior person. I have to learn, what the best way is for you to give input. Because not everybody is is okay giving input in a big team meeting.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll already say, hey, as an example, hey, Daisy, today we're going to talk about this topic, and I really would appreciate your point of view. So
Yeah.
just know that I'm going to ask you to, speak up during this conversation. And for somebody, then, okay, I know this is coming, so that's fine. Instead of maybe putting you on the spot right there and then, right? So
Yeah.
I also encourage my interns to, voice an opinion if they see something is not right, or if they think they have a better idea. Just voice it. It doesn't matter if you're 1 day with us, if you're 100 days with us, or 5 years with us. Your voice is also very important. So that's something I try to foster as a leader in my team.
Yeah, so just building that foundation of honesty,
Yeah.
open communication.
Yeah.
But some backgrounds, whether it's your nationality or if you're an introvert, they don't feel comfortable speaking up, right?
Yeah, yeah. And we all been there working for companies with different cultures where you think, oh, I just sent an email and you're supposed to respond back. But for them, when you copy in a manager, they're expecting the manager to respond back, right? And for us, it's just normal to respond back and just keep the manager in copy.
Yeah.
But it's not a given. So I think learning these etiquettes, on different cultures and different people really helps in a corporate environment or in a company environment anyways.
Yeah, you've just reminded me of an example that actually happened to me. I was very new at a company and someone reached out to me, but CC'd in my manager. And it was something I didn't do or did wrong. And in my eyes, coming from an Italian and British background, it's really confrontational to do that. So I actually went up to the colleague and said, hey, that wasn't very nice of you to do that. But she said, no, this is just how we do things. Like, we just want to make everyone aware of the situation just in case something didn't happen or didn't align, etc.
Yeah.
So it's funny how even though I've lived here for 6 years,
Yeah.
I came across something that, triggered me a bit, even though it's, I guess, part of culture here, I guess.
Well, and one of the things that I would add is that, when you copy somebody in an email, especially in our work, we do it often. I sometimes just put copying you in for transparency.
Yeah.
Not just because you need to take action, but just that you're aware of.
Yeah.
Because, as leaders or as recruiters, you go into a meeting where something was maybe communicated and you maybe you're not aware of. So I think communicating from a transparency perspective helps, but it's good to then give the reason why you are doing that.
Yes,
right?
and not just doing it.
Yeah, you're just doing it. Yeah, so I do that a lot. So.
Yeah, I thought this person was calling me out and I was like, damn, I've been in the business for a week. Of course I don't know how to do that. On this topic as well, so of speaking up, giving people a voice. I recently read a post of yours on LinkedIn regarding a few years ago, a promotion situation that you went through.
Correct.
Yeah. So can you talk us through more about what happened in this scenario?
So I'm not gonna, name the companies because I still love them. But I actually had a promotion where I felt that if you look at the compensation, it was not adding up. I had honest conversation about that. And unfortunately, they said, hey, this is the max that we can give. And I said, okay, if that's the max you can give, then I'll take that opportunity. But a week later, I was actually speaking to one of my male colleagues who went through the similar process that I did. And I said, hey, can you share with me, how your process went? And he was like, oh, I got a 10% increase because I'm going to a different job band. And then, they looked into, the salary range. And then I had a correction of 12% included. So in hindsight, it was a 22% salary increase without any negotiations or anything like that. And me knowing our policy, that should have been the case with me as well. But that didn't happen. So I brought it up, to the senior head of HR and said, hey, I actually put a meeting in. And it was like, hey, I see you have put a meeting in. What is this about? And I said, well, to be honest, I feel I'm being discriminated. And he said, oh, that's a very hefty, claim to make. And I said, well, I've gone through a promotion cycle where, this is what I've been told. This is the max that we can do. I had to fight for 10%. And by coincidence, I was talking to a white colleague of mine who went through a similar process. And he said, hey, this is what happened. I got a 10%. We looked at the band. I got a 12% additional. I said, that is our policy, right, within the company. And then, the head of HR said, oh, Kobi, thank you very much for coming with this to me. Obviously, I need to look into it. So I have to, name and mention names. I said, that's totally fine. And then a week later, I was put into a meeting room and I got a 12% additional increase because it was if we look at the process, it was not done through the process. And in hindsight, I was talking to somebody who was a little bit familiar with the situation. They said, well, Kobi, people thought that you would take the job no matter what. If you got a 5% increase or a 10% increase.
But why?
And I was like, wow. Well, so I think, these things you never know. These are behind the scenes conversations. But I was very, very happy in my case to fight for, because initially I turned the opportunity down because I thought that, if that's my worth, then it's not worth it. I knew I was going to do a lot of, I was going to work hard. So in hindsight, it's a good thing. And it was a great learning opportunity for me, is that sometimes you think that everybody is treated equally, but that's not the case. Sometimes you need to fight a little bit more for your point of view, or you need to fight for your worth. So I would share this with everybody to, critical think about it. Just because you want an opportunity doesn't mean you have to take less.
Of course.
Yeah.
So knowing your worth and speaking up, and also maybe even consulting internally with some colleagues.
Yeah. Especially if you're not familiar. And I think that's an important thing to do. I mean, nowadays, I'm talking about, this is a long time ago. So
hopefully things have changed.
Yeah, there was a little bit less more around social media and having access to, job banding and salary information and things of that nature. But I do think that's very important to, at least, if you have a few people you trust within the organization to discuss, what you are going through, and, any advice that it can give you or mentor you while going through that process.
So I also find, even if you do build a foundation of open communication and trust, that some people still find it uncomfortable to have their voice or speak up. So for those that do still struggle, even though they have the platform, what extra things could they consider or think about?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I have that with females. So I've supported a lot of females when it comes to negotiation. So I think the community is not going to be happy with me if I give this secret out. But one of the things that I share with females always, if they're going to a negotiation, to just simply ask this question: whatever salary or offer you're putting together, my assumption is that it's based on equity, looking at my peers within your respective organization. What it does is that it also raises more awareness. And hey, if we are putting together an offer for Daisy, did we really think about this offer, or are we just putting out something just to put out something? So if Daisy then says, hey, thank you very much for the offer, I'm hoping that the offer that you have presented, looking at your respective organizations, compared to my peers, it is an equitable salary or compensation. It will make you think again, right?
Yeah.
Because if you say yes to the opportunity and you join a company and then you find out there's a 20% gap between your peers, that's not going to be fair, especially if you addressed it prior to you even joining the company, right?
Yeah.
Then you can go back to the table and say, guys, this is what I found out in my negotiation. I actually mentioned that, the offer that you're putting together compared to my peers is equitable, right?
Yes.
Now I found out that that's not the case. So my question is, what are we going to do about that, right? So I think if you have any doubt, that's just a simple question that you can ask back.
Yeah, everyone write that down, because that was so well put.
Yeah, and it will make that company think again, because, we're trying to close the pay gap, when we come to male and female colleagues. So it is definitely a topic that is in a lot of companies.
Yeah.
So at the moment, still. So if you're going through that process, just ask that question and see what comes back.
I went through it as well. A few years ago as well, twice, where I saw everyone else around me get promoted so quickly, sometimes within 2 months.
Okay.
One person had 3 promotions in a year.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And I felt like I was a hard worker, but I was always promised, oh, next month we'll discuss the promotion. Next month. And I just saw this pattern that I didn't want to judge the companies though. They're like, oh, is it because I'm a woman that they're not considering me for a leadership position? So the way you worded it is so good, because you're not like putting the company, like making them feel bad about something. It's just raising their awareness in total.
Yeah, just to rethink,
Yeah.
And in my case, I've helped a lot of females who I've shared this with, and they're very happy. And I hope they pay it forward, because at the end of the day, we all want, fair, decent of compensation when it comes to our worth for the companies that we work for.
Yeah, your wife and daughter must be so happy that they have you.
I didn't put on my shirt, but I also have a shirt called the Black Negotiator. So
Oh,
I'm known for that.
so talking about your shirt,
Yeah.
OMEK, and also the Giving Back
Yeah.
mentorship that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about OMEK.
Well, so OMEK is a community I'm part of. It's a community of talented individuals from the diaspora, which is Africa, the continent, and it's actually founded by the founder called Kimo, and his goal is to make sure that the people from the continent who are bicultural talent are seen, heard, and given opportunities, because there's a lot of talented people who are part of the community who are not always getting a fair chance. And he works with a lot of companies to shine a light on bicultural talent, but just to make sure that they're given opportunities, but also understand, hey, if you're looking at this company, what do they actually do? What kind of opportunities do they have? And how can I potentially secure some? So that is all about OMEK, and I'm a part of the advisory board where once in a while I give to share my opinion, or I get asked strategic questions, and I try to give input to help shape that company.
Wow.
And when it comes to Giving Back is a Dutch organization, non-profit, where everybody who's part of that, from a mentorship perspective, actually mentor a 14, 15-year-old kid who is coming from an underprivileged background, to help them with our network. So I have mentored a few people who wanted to do something around sales or wanted to be a doctor, but I don't know people who are doctors. So just having and connecting them with my network really helps. But also Giving Back helps with different workshops. How do you present yourself? How you could be socially better. So they do a lot of things. It's a 9-month program. It's not like a 3-month program. You have to be very dedicated.
Yeah.
Where you help this young individual, get more insights and leverage your network so that they can be, a better professional or make good career choices before they go to uni or even college.
Wow, that is such an amazing thing that you're doing. You're changing, even if it's just an individual, you're just changing their whole life.
Yeah, I try to. I mean, the reason why I do this is, and it gives me a lot of energy, because I hope, and this an African saying, each one teach one. I'm hoping that everybody that I touch who can help another person, we create a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my goal. I cannot change the world, but I can change people who can help change the world. So that's my goal.
You will change the world eventually. When people see this podcast as well, you're reaching many people at your job. So you also do the mentorship, OMEK, your full-time job as a manager as well. How do you do it? How do you fit everything in?
To be honest, I did something called Find My Why. One of my old colleagues actually put me onto this idea of, finding your why. So finding your purpose. And I think if you find your purpose, everything you do is not seen as a burden. Everything that is on my path will organically happen. I can make easy decisions and say, hey, this is something I believe in, so hence I'm doing it. This, I don't really believe in it. It's not part of my path, so I'm not going to do that. So that's I would say that's the reason why I'm passionate for everything that I do, because I found my why, and everything which is on my path, happens organically.
And you can relate to them as well.
Yeah.
You wanted that help when you were younger.
Yeah, for sure. And luckily, I've had a lot of people who have, helped me throughout my career. I don't know if I've said it, but I have 2 mentors. So I have a...
oh, nice.
I have, in terms of equal gender, so I have a male, chief marketing officer who, gives me, mentorship. And then I have a female who has a Turkish background, who also gives me input. So everything that I'm going through from a career perspective or life challenge perspective, I always bounce off ideas with those 2, and they've been instrumental in the jobs that I've said yes to, things that I've done. So I think it's very important to have a mentor or mentors who can help you, pivot and navigate your career.
That's amazing. So you have mentors yourself, and you're mentoring.
Yes.
So you're giving back.
Yeah.
Amazing. So this one's a bit of a risky question to ask, but I think other recruiters, or maybe even recruiters in your teams that you've managed before, have been through this, where we're trying to hit the hiring quota, but also diversity quota. And I've had it many times when managers say to me, like, I want X person for my next hire. Very specific, right? It could be a woman because my team is too male driven, or do you know where I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So as a recruiter, perhaps because you've experienced this as well, how do we navigate this with hiring managers? Because of course we're trying to be diverse and inclusive of our hiring, but we also want to be inclusive, right? We want to include everyone. We don't want to exclude men if we're looking for women, for example. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So the my philosophy around that specific, let's say, question is, we have to give the managers options to be able to choose, right? So, and sometimes we need to be intentional. So, if you are in an organization where you lack a certain talent, then sometimes you need to be intentional. So unfortunately, you are going to exclude some people. But generally speaking, I think it's very important as a recruiter to present an option to a manager, not for them to make that decision immediately. But if you're saying, I'm just making this out right now, okay, we want to increase our female talent in this respective organization or this respective team, then the manager needs to see, good female talent, right?
Yes.
Maybe the first or second go around, they may not choose the female talent, but at least they're now seeing a benchmark of female talent to assess and say, actually, if I look at my team, if I look at the value add, maybe the next opportunity I will choose a female talent. But if you don't give them an option, it's very difficult for them to then choose. So that's how I've navigated with my team and say, hey, are we giving our business and teams options? Because if we don't, then obviously there's a no-brainer. They're gonna choose what they've always been doing. So that's how I answer that. And I think sometimes we need to be intentional. So then we need to choose for the talent. I'm not saying they're gonna do the job, but then it's maybe not an obvious choice. But we need to be intentional.
Yeah, and also it's the soft skills hiring as well, if we're willing to upskill someone.
Yeah.
And also it begins with the job adverts, right?
100%.
You have to include inclusive words as well, right?
Yeah.
You can't say like manpower and stuff like that. You have to be intentional with your job adverts as well.
Well, I think, that's something easy to do, right? Just be, and I've read some research that did show that how females look at job advert, when it's masculine, compared to when it's much more neutral. So hence it's very important to make sure that you have inclusive job adverts, because it's much more neutral for female, talent to also consider applying. Because sometimes when they see words, they will not apply because they think, well, based on all these words, I don't think I'm the right person for the opportunity. So I think that's something to look at. But I also think it's very important as a team to also be conscious of, okay, what does diversity mean for us?
Yeah.
What does the diversity mean for me? The person or the hiring manager I'm dealing with, what does diversity mean for them?
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes they do have a story, sometimes they don't. If they don't have a story, then it's okay, what do we as an organization want? Well, as an organization, we say that we want to improve on our gender or want to improve on bicultural talent. That's the discussion that you can have. I would always say, start with yourself. What is your drive when it comes to the whole D&I topic?
Yeah.
The manager you're dealing with, do they have a storyline around that topic? And then also organization. So that's how I would answer that question. Because I think it's important to have that.
Absolutely. I think some people will definitely watch this and listen to this and relate to it and have been too afraid to ask about this because it's an awkward topic, right? You don't want to tell people like that this actually happens in the industry, but it's for the better, right? Like it's just our way of navigating around this and trying to make the company more diverse as well. But how do you ask for it? I think that was the main thing. So thank you so much for giving us the insights. So as an individual, how could I or our listeners and viewers contribute to D&I initiatives or become allies?
Yeah, I think for me, it's having your own personal story, right? So why is D&I important to you? You need to start there, right? Because if you start there, you also see your potential biases, right? And I think that's a very important starting point in everybody's journey on the D&I topic. So for example, for me is because I had a chance to come to the Netherlands, have integrate and have a career. As a result of that, my journey is how can I make sure that I am adding value based on the opportunity I was given to others as well, right? And I see in the space that I'm in, it's very easy for me to, not present a resume because I do have the power to do so, right? So now that I have the power to share resumes with hiring manager, I am going to, highlight some resume which from the get-go doesn't look like an obvious choice, but based on my conversation, I think this person deserves a chance to have the opportunity, to have the conversation. And I think this is something that I was a part of a summit, that opportunities, not everybody has the same access to opportunities, right? And I think as a recruiter, we make or break people when it comes to presenting or not presenting somebody's resume.
Yeah.
So personal story, that is my personal story. And then I think you are even fortunate if you can work for a company who also has the D&I as a strategic topic, because then you can always say, you know what? Yes, I do have a personal story. The company has this as a strategic priority. How does my story fill into that? And then I know I'm biased because of my angle, but am I being inclusive, asking other people within the company, what do they think about certain subject or topics, or how do they even see talent? That's when you create the allyship, because you know that, I'm also biased, right? So just based on that, I need to ask other people what they think before a formal decision is made.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned is that we are all biased, but especially when it comes to recruitment, how can we make sure we are as objective as possible throughout the whole process? That is our goal, and that's what we can hold managers accountable to. Are you objective enough, right? Okay, this has nothing to do with the role. You as a recruiter need to be as objective as possible and challenge your managers to be as objective as possible.
Yeah, and you're so right about us telling the story, right? Being storytellers and explaining what the candidate can do and paint the bigger picture instead of just their resumes.
Yeah, I think, and this is no disrespect to my peers. I think everybody can recruit. It's not
How dare
an
you?
easy.
I'm joking.
No, but it's not difficult, right? But I do think there's levels, right? So the great recruiters are the one who understands the business. The normal recruiters are the one who are just pushing the resumes and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? So I do think there's levels. And if you're a great recruiter, then you are thinking 360, you're thinking your organization, you're thinking about your network, you're thinking about your presence, you're thinking about so many different things. I think that's the differentiator between being a okay recruiter and a great recruiter.
Yeah, also understanding the team's dynamics, how this person, no matter what background they're from, will fit in. And you also need to talk to different people within your organization, right? So, and I hope you've had it already, but why do we talk about stakeholder management being one of the critical things in recruitment? Because you constantly engage with other people and managing their expectations. Yeah. That's why that part is very important, right? Yeah. Because for me, within talent acquisition, you are managing the process. Well, you are first of all identifying the right people for your respective organization. Yeah. And then you manage them through the process, right? And in managing through the process, you are constantly managing other people's expectations. Yeah. Right? That's why the stakeholder management piece is very important. If you're not great at it, you're probably not going to be great at recruitment. No, and don't be afraid to ask questions as well.
100%.
Because I had this at PVH when we worked together. Okay. I had this data analyst role and I was such a noob with it. I didn't understand what they were looking for. And I was pushing CVs and I knew I was a good recruiter, but I just didn't get it. So I actually thought, why don't I just, this is when we were before COVID, sitting in the office. I was like, why don't I just go and sit with them? Yeah. And just see how they work. Yeah. And I'm so glad I did, because I got to see them working together. Yeah. It was basically just a huge screen with squiggles. Yeah. It was all analytical stuff. I had no idea what they were doing, but I could just see how they were working together, the things that they were saying, what was important. And I thought, oh, I'm so dumb for just not knowing what this is. But I think be curious, right? You can be a good recruiter, like you said, but if you're not willing to put yourself in that team's mentality or in understand the company as a whole, then you're not going to get the right person.
And as a leader, you know what I've shared with my stakeholders of my business is I need access to your organization. And they would say, what do you mean? I said, well, you should be comfortable when my recruiter joins your team meetings. And they said, why would they join my team meetings? Because they can listen to the conversation that you have to understand, you know, oh, Brian, I'm just making this up. Brian is a data analyst. This is how he talks in the meetings. This is what he actually does. This is what is critical on the projects that he's working on. As a result, when I'm talking to a candidate, I can ask a few questions based on me just physically being present in that meeting. And then actually the talent is thinking, how do you know this? Well, because I was part of that meeting that took place. So I always ask people within an organization, give us access to your teams and organizations. Why? So that we can learn and better assess the candidates for you and think, why are you actually presenting this candidate? Well, because I was able to ask the right question to make sure that they can actually do the job.
Wow, damn, that is next level recruiting. Yeah, that's amazing. Does your team do this all the time?
Well, you don't have to do it all the time, especially if you don't know, right? Sometimes there are new roles that you have no clue what it entails. Then it's important to understand that. But having access to the teams and being part of team meetings, because you will think, why do I need to be part of a team meeting? Well, there's a lot goes on, right? If you sit in a TAT meeting, listen to the different topics that we will discuss, you will go away thinking, oh, I know much more than I knew before, right? And just an hour of your time, huh? You don't have to do it on a weekly basis. It could be once a month. It could be once a quarter. But at least you see what is going on in that part of the organization.
I'm writing that down for my next role that I can't understand or I don't know what to recruit for. But even if you are a seasoned recruiter, if you are joining a new company, there's a new division opening, you become more of a generalist. Or there's a new thing, for example, AI, that pops up into your department. You can't be expected to know everything, right? So you have to ask questions and dive in deep like this. I think this is a great idea.
And if you're not passionate about it, then you're also not going to be proactive in asking the questions, right? So, for example, I listened to a podcast.
Talent Exchange?
No, not yet. But I'm following right now. I did follow it.
Follow.
But this is a guy called David Green, and he interviews a lot of senior executive in the TA, people analytics, talent management space. And I get a lot of insights from him. Small examples, big ideas. Why am I spending 2 hours a weekly basis listening to, a podcast? Because I want to learn. I want to improve because I'm curious, right? So I think if you're curious, then you do a lot of things that is not standard for your profession. And I think that's also a very important one.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're hitting a wall with a particular role, this is the next step, right? Some people are like, oh, I'm just going to give up. I'm just going to give this role to someone else. The manager has to compromise, but instead, just immerse yourself in that team. I think 1 hour as well is enough, right?
It's enough, And, I always say, it doesn't cost you a lot of time to have lunch with somebody from the team, a senior person, a junior person, or somebody who has, a middle ground experience. If you go into the office at least 3 times a week, you can make time every other week to speak to somebody who's part of your organization. And you just ask this question, hey, you do this with the team. Break it down in, in baby language or in simple terms, how this is done. What do you do on a weekly, monthly, annually? What are the key moments in your job? And just by having lunch with somebody, you get so much more out of it. And I will, as a recruiter, we're always busy, but you need to eat. So just maximize that time and combine it, I would say.
And talking about that, so like I said, you're a manager at Heineken, right? At the moment. How big's your team?
20 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quite a big team. Globally?
No, in Amsterdam,
In Amsterdam alone?
Amsterdam alone.
Wow. And then you're also a mentor, and then you're also doing OMEK as well. So what's next for Kobi?
What's next? Well, I would say just maintain. I don't have to do anything crazy.
Love that.
I also have 3 kids, so they keep me busy as well.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. But I think it's maintained. But when it comes to my work, I think one of the things that I want to be proud of is, everybody in the TA space, I would like them to want to be part of my team because we're best in class. So I'm working towards, how can we be best in class? How can we be best in class when it comes to our candidate journey? How can we be best in class in the tooling that we use? So my goal, and I'm planning on staying with Heineken for a long time, is how can we be best in class for, the TA space. And then personally, just make sure that I'm there for my kids. I spend some quality time with them, and I make sure I'm there. I'm physically present.
Yeah.
Whatever they need. And I try to be also a good partner for my wife, who is the boss lady, we call her.
But you also did an event recently, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I also did. Yeah. Once in a while, I don't do it all the time, but I just want to make sure that I'm also present.
Yeah.
And for the right cause. I think the event you're talking about is Breaking Bias,
Yes.
which happened like 2 weeks ago. Very, very proud to be part of that. I think maybe your old manager, Annie, was part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Annie was part of that. And I've been telling her to do, something together. So finally, we did share the stage together.
Amazing.
And now she's hungry for more.
That's always the case. People are nervous,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
as soon as they do it once, they're like, I need more.
Yeah.
But any more events like Breaking Bias happening this year?
Well, there's a few things that I'm going to be doing. So one, I'm going to do actually it's a fireside chat with Adrian Kolf. We're doing
Great guy.
we are developers in Berlin. So that's in July.
I have tickets.
You have tickets?
Yeah.
Okay, then
Yeah.
I'll see you there. And otherwise, I'll get you tickets. So that's happening. And then later in the year, I think it's November, Adrian is hosting a big event for TA. I think he did it similar last year.
Yeah.
And he's asked me if I want to be part of it. I don't know in which shape or form, but
I want to go to that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's in the summer?
I think it's in September, October time, I think.
Okay, cool.
So you can be my plus one.
Yeah, amazing, sick. Love that. Hey, this was an amazing, I can't speak. What's wrong with me today? This is an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot from you. I'm going to take some of your advice on board as well, especially the lunches with the hiring managers if I don't understand a position. Because even though I have 10 years experience, I still don't know some stuff. But thank you so much, Kobi. This is the second podcast you've done with me.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Talent Exchange. I'm going to be following it. And if you are not doing that already, like, subscribe, and share.
Amazing. Okay. Oh, one last thing.
Yes.
Where can we find you if we want to ask you about opportunities at Heineken or about the mentorship programs?
Well, how do you call it? You can find me on LinkedIn for sure. HeinekenCareers.com is where you can find the Heineken opportunities. And then if you want to follow, OMEK or Giving Back, you can. And they're on all the different platforms.
Can anyone sign up?
Yeah, anyone can sign up. Yeah. Sure.
Do we all get merch?
It depends. I think you get merch when you're brand ambassador.
When you're like elite status,
yeah.
Love that.
But I could pull some strings if needed.
Again, Kobi, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Daisy.